Okay, you beautiful New Zealanders. Well, in today's video, I'm actually going to talk about the Littlewood draft, or the final English draft of the treaty, but I'm going to break this into two. So today is going to be the first part, and then we'll do the rest of it tomorrow. So in the last video, I said that the final English draft of the Treaty of Waitangi went missing. Remember that? So what happened to this final English draft of the treaty? Well, it was found 149 years later. And what happened around that? Well, on February the 27th in Pukekohe, 1989, John Littlewood and his sister Beryl Needham were clearing out their mum's house after she had died. They were pulling out some sheets from an old sideboard, and as they did so, an envelope with the handwritten words Treaty of Waitangi fell on the floor. Oh my goodness. Imagine that. Having a really old envelope with a really old piece of paper inside, in somebody's really old handwriting, an ancient document. Well, very gingerly, Beryl put down the sheets and picked up the envelope. Opening it, she found a very ancient looking document, handwritten, like I said. John was called and they discussed their find. They knew it was valuable. Without going into too much detail, this document was photographed and examined by various authorities. Here is the main one. Watch this. This is a really a great academic. His name is Phil Parkinson. Recently, Phil Parkinson, a researcher on the treaty, chief archivist at the Alexander Turnbull Library in New Zealand, has examined the Littlewood Treaty and come to the conclusion that it's in the handwriting of James Busby, the British resident and Hobson's secretary. Look at that. So that is a pretty significant thing to say, and there's the reference. So this was definitely, this final English draft, or this piece of paper, was in the handwriting of James Busby, and that was confirmed by a heavyweight academic. James Busby was the key person in the team of people who were tasked with crafting the final English draft of the treaty, the draft used to create the treaty in Maori. In his journal, he wrote that he was the person to write the final English draft of the treaty. So watch. This is what Busby said. He said, "The draft of the treaty prepared by me," look at that, "was adopted by Captain Hobson without any alteration other than a transposition of certain sentences, which did not in any degree affect the sense," and there's the reference. So without a doubt, the final English draft of the treaty was in the handwriting of Busby. Phil Parkinson can confirm that the document found by John Littlewood and Beryl Needham was in fact in the handwriting of Busby. So that's a huge big tick. That's confirmed by Phil Parkinson, and he's saying so himself. So this is all solid evidence. When this final English draft was found in Pukekohe in 1989, the family tree of the Littlewood family was closely examined because they wanted to know, how did this get here? And it would solve the mystery of how it went missing, you see. This examination led all the way to the 1840s and 50s. In those 2 decades, a lawyer by the name of Henry Littlewood was doing conveyancing work for the US consul in New Zealand, a guy called James Clendon. That is to say, Clendon was buying and selling land, and he used Henry Littlewood for the legal work. Pretty simple, isn't it, right? Just get a lawyer to help you do your legal work, do all the paperwork. At some point in the history of this document, Clendon, it is thought, must have given the final English draft of the treaty to his lawyer, Henry Littlewood, for safekeeping. Just why James Freeman and Hobson did not know that Clendon had the final English draft is an absolute mystery. It would have saved them, or Freeman, concocting new rogue versions of the treaty in English from the discarded notes, which is exactly what he did. The discovery of this document caused panic among activists, which in turn caused alarm among politicians. You see, politicians are afraid of activists. They will do anything to keep them happy and calm, to appease them. Most politicians have got no guts and no spine. This is a very interesting newspaper article from the New Zealand Herald, Friday, September the 11th, 1992. And I'll just draw your attention to some things in here. By the way, I recommend that you just pause your video and read this for yourself, but I'll draw some things out for you. That is, first thing is Mr. Wards, the former chief historian of the Internal Affairs Department. He said that whatever it is, this article, it is interesting because of its date, its authentic paper, and the authentic handwriting, and whatever it says. So there's hugely interesting that it's got his attention straight away. And of course, he's picking up on the most important things. But then the other bit that I want you to notice is here is Mr. Lee, who was the Minister of Internal Affairs. Look what he said. He says he expressed department's irritation that news of the find had made public and there was a mystery who had written the document. Well, you know what? Why is he irritated? Wouldn't he be excited if he's the Minister of Internal Affairs? Wouldn't he be going, wow, this could be really significant. Let's get it investigated. Let's get it set up a royal commission. Let's whole big investigation going on this to make sure that we've really thoroughly investigated, do it thoroughly, do it in a dedicated way, do it in a way that is highly professional, get all the experts in from everywhere. But oh no, it was eventually a hit job was done on this to close it down because of pressure from activists. Donald Loveridge, Claudia Orange. Really, it's shameful that this document has been, under the pressure from activists, has been shelved in Archives New Zealand, and it needs to come out of there, and it needs to be instated as the official English draft of the treaty once and for all, so that the gravy train can stop. That's the truth of the matter. You know, Bruce Moon, in his brilliant book New Zealand the Fair Colony, you know, by the way, he's one of New Zealand's great historians, and you should get his book called New Zealand the Fair Colony. It's fantastic. He writes in that book, he says, despite the many attempts of such people as Claudia Orange and Donald Loveridge to deny its provenance, there can be no reasonable doubt that it is genuine. He's talking about the Littlewood draft. And by the way, lest you are uncertain, there can be no reasonable doubt that Hobson's final draft of the 4th of February is what it purports to be, albeit officialdom hired one Donald Loveridge to discredit it. He failed abjectly. Moreover, within a few weeks, copies of it, he's talking about the Littlewood draft, were dispatched on 2 occasions by American authorities here to their superiors in the United States. Did you know of this? Claudia Orange didn't. So what he's talking about is that copies of the final English draft were sent to America by the American consul in New Zealand pretty soon after the treaty had been signed. But Claudia Orange didn't know about it, you see. Honestly, she's been paid out. She's an activist. And so was Donald Loveridge. So you've got this thing going. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's just a fact. And there's Bruce Moon backing up what I'm saying. So good on you, Bruce. Okay, let's wrap this up. If you were a researcher looking for the final English draft of the Treaty of Waitangi, you would be looking for a document that met certain criteria, wouldn't you? Well, you would. First of all, it would have to be in the handwriting of James Busby, since Busby said he wrote the final English draft. So whatever document you find, if it's not in Busby's handwriting, it's not the final English draft. Number 2, it would have to mirror the meaning, wording, and flow of the treaty in Maori, seeing one was a translation of the other. As one historian put it, quote, the Littlewood document's text mirrors the Maori translation perfectly throughout in terms of sequence of statements, word weight per sentence, and the use of synonymous words in each language. Under the strictest criteria one wishes to apply scientifically, the Littlewood document fits the expected profile of the final English draft. Wow, that's pretty clear, isn't it? The third criteria that you'd be looking for, it would have to be dated the 4th of February. Since this was the date, we know for certain that the translation from English to Maori was executed. Remember that? It was given by Hobson to Henry Williams at 4 o'clock on the 4th. The date of the 4th rules out the hypothesis that the Littlewood draft is a back translation. Some people have said that. How ridiculous. Claudia Orange is one of those people who say stupid things like that. On the 4th of February, the treaty in Maori did not exist. So calling it a back translation from a treaty in Maori is as silly as making a case for a 4-sided triangle. So not meeting any one of these 3 criteria would immediately eliminate it from being the final English draft. Conversely, meeting all 3 criteria would qualify it to be the final English draft of the Treaty of Waitangi, wouldn't it? If this document that exists in Archives New Zealand today meets those 3 criteria, you'd have to say it was unequivocally, incontrovertibly, the final English draft of the Treaty of Waitangi. The Littlewood draft meets all 3 necessary criteria gloriously, not just meets them, but meets them gloriously. So what's the conclusion? Without doubt, it's the final English draft of the Treaty of Waitangi, and it needs to be recognised by the government for just that. See you next time. Have a great night. Please share this video with everyone everywhere. The mainstream media should be reporting on the issues I am raising in these videos, but they're not. Why aren't they? Well, they're corrupt. Why are they corrupt? They are collaborating with Maori activists, there's no doubt about that. In the final analysis, the people of New Zealand, that's us, have ultimate power, not the politicians. Did you know that? The people can kick out the people in power and they can put them into power. How are we going to do that? Well, awareness is the key to change. If enough people in New Zealand become aware of the issues I am raising, we can save this beautiful country. So share these videos everywhere so that come the next election, we can vote the right people in and kick out the people who are destroying New Zealand.